There used to be the statistic that 42% of black women do not get married. It's probably even higher now. But one thing I think women don't talk about is this one thing. Sometimes we're the problem and we don't take the time to look at ourselves. But nobody wants to talk about that. We idolize people like Sierra for the prayer that she prayed to get her husband. But we don't talk about, did Sierra actually put in the work to work on herself first? Do you think that a person like her could attract somebody if she was broken? I think you attract who you are. A lot of us don't want to put in the work to work on ourselves first. We dread the thought of healing because it seems like a task. Instead of like looking at it like, okay, you know what? Let me get to know myself. Let me find out the things that I actually like about me. And I think until we start to actually work on ourselves, that statistic is going to remain. And I'm not saying that it's all because of being unhealed, but I am saying be accountable because everything ain't these men. Some of it is us. And we need to say that.
Welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen. I'm all about helping people get married. So let's get into it. So what's really interesting about this one is this whole healing thing. And I wanted to start there because I'll be honest, it took me a while really to get that into my system, because I do think that there are terms that women use and men use that don't always, literally line up. And I recognize that the journey that a woman takes in order to go through the process of, hurt and pain, and then, getting that into a certain place, knocking down her walls, and then able to enter into another relationship is slightly different than what men go through. See, a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men have been taught from a young age actually to put up walls. That's actually one of the very first things that a young boy is taught, because we're taught things like don't cry, right? And so when you don't cry and you start to also notice that the male culture doesn't really care about your feelings, it doesn't care about your emotions, it doesn't care about if you had a bad day, then you start to lock those things away. And you start to learn that, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal, if I go down this path, over here kind of alone a little bit. And for women, it works differently because even their culture is a little bit more about emotional freedom and the ability to be able to express themselves and to talk to each other. So a lot of them, carry their emotions a little bit more open. And then as women get hurt, they, for the first time in their lives, they're really starting to put up walls. They're starting to lock that emotion away. And so many women understand they can't be at their best until they bring those emotions out again. But it's very scary for them because now they're dealing with, this fact of, oh my gosh, is this next person going to hurt my emotions? Recently, I was watching an older episode of Married at First Sight. And one of the women on there knew she had a walls. In fact, she not only knew it, she had told the producers about it. She told her husband about it, and she even told her husband's friends. And everybody from her friends to his friends to, him and even the producers and all this other kind of stuff kept telling her, you've got to get these walls down. And everything was bothering her about her new husband because she was just in this situation where she couldn't get these walls down. It just bothered her. She just did not want anyone that close to her. And they were basically telling her, look, if you don't let these people, this man get close to you, you're not really married. And you failed before you started, and you're saying you want to get married, but it's like you're not ready. Right? And like I've said before, I truly believe from the 80s all the way up until maybe about 10 years ago, the focus has always been on women. And I truly believe that that is so because simply women spend more money in this space, right? Women will read a book. They will, go to a seminar. They tend to be a lot more aggressive when it comes to dating and relationships and even supporting the people that they like, right? And because of that, a lot of people, it's not so much that I don't think that they care about men. It's just they recognize there's more money in talking to women. And I've even run into it myself where I've talked to several people that I've collabed with They've told me straight up. They said their platform is for women because they know there's more money over there. It's not that they don't care about men. It's just there's more money over there. And so because of that, many of these people cater to the women that they're talking to. Because at the end of the day, they want more women to watch them. As I put up every single video, there's a part of me that feels like, okay, this one is more for the women, or this video is more for the men, or this one might be neutral, right? But I've kind of told myself I just wasn't going to worry about it. I was like, I want to try to do my best to help as many people as possible. And even if I do make a video like this one for women, recognizing that a lot of women might not watch it, I still say I want to put it out there. Why? Because my goal is that they have the information. But unfortunately, just like it says in the Bible, okay, that people, generally speaking, will move away from wisdom and they will go to the people that simply tell them what their itchy ears want to hear. And that is a true reality. Many times, the very people that we should be running to, we run from, because those people are like a mirror to some of our deepest and darkest fears, worries, and concerns, right? And because of that, that is why, we end up in this situation. But in all of my studies, working with Christian Singles Connect, working with my new group, being out here on the internet, working with other collaborators, and all of my research, what I've learned is pretty much 50% of the problems are caused by women and 50% of the problems are caused by men. Generally speaking, when a woman says, I cannot find good men, there's no good men, all these men out here act like A, B, C, D, and E, then what that generally means to me is that that woman does not know how to pick out good men. The good men might be next to her. Maybe she's not sexually excited by them. Maybe they don't do nothing for her. Maybe it's a type of man she's not familiar with. But the bottom line is, whatever reason, she rejects those men. And then she goes to the very men that will hurt her again. And for many of the men, it's kind of the same thing. They will be around, like I said, they'll be around women. There'll be a nice woman there that maybe they don't think is attractive enough or whatever it is. And then they will reject her. And then they will chase the woman who kind of looks like an Instagram model. And then they get mad when that Instagram model wants special treatment and spends all their money and all this other kind of stuff. Because we all want all this extra. But for most of us, what we're not doing is we're not focusing in on good people that maybe we can work with a little bit to get to where we really want those people to be, and then, get married to them. So I agree with what this woman is saying, because at the end of the day, a lot of women could be married if they had just made better choices. A lot of women could be not going through as much pain if they simply, again, made better choices or did other things. And a lot of women have to recognize that there's lots of really great men out here in the world. I have two really great female friends that do a lot of dating. They're still in the dating space. They haven't found their person. But they will admit that most of the men that they have dated have been good men. It just did not work out, but they were good men. And then I'll run into other women who swear every man out here in the world is crazy, or that cheats, or that is bad, and all this other kind of stuff. And I think I've told you all this story about a lady that came out. She was one of the first people that came out to Christian Singles Connect back when there was only 10 people in Christian Singles Connect. And I was giving her some advice on how to pick a man. And so she took the advice and she actually got this guy. And she said he was great. He made all this money. He was a nice guy. He treated her well. Everything was great. But because she had been dealing with so much drama in her past, she thought that using those old tricks would work on this man that was at a better quality. And it failed. It just backfired. And so she calls me up and she's like, can we talk? I just got to talk this through. So me and her talked for about an hour and a half. And I was trying to, kind of tell her that, honestly, you might not be able to ever get back in there. But I was like, if you do, this is what I would advise you to do. And she said, she did it. But then she called me back like a week later and she told me she did try, but she said it didn't work. She said he would not take her back. And see, that's the whole thing. See, a lot of us don't recognize, okay, that we've been going to McDonald's our whole life, and that's when I'm using McDonald's here, I'm talking about the dating pool. We've been going to the McDonald's dating pool, right? And we've been eating these cheap 99-cent hamburgers, right? And then one day, somebody takes you to In-N-Out or to Five Guys or, Big Daddy's Burger Bar or whatever, a higher level burger. Where the burger ain't 99 cents, the burger $10. And then you eat the burger and it tastes different. It feels different. Your body even reacts different when you go home. It's like everything about that burger is different. But when you go into that environment, you're going into that environment, talking to the people like you would at McDonald's, acting like their burger is overpriced because you're used to burgers being 99 cents. You're thinking, oh, can I get a Happy Meal for my kid or for my little niece or something like that for $2? And then they're looking at you like, we don't have Happy Meals here. So everything about you is saying that you don't belong there. But for whatever reason, the person behind the counter walks you through the process. They get you through. They teach you. They help you to do what you need to do. But then by the end of it, and you come back a second time, you come back with the same energy that you had before. And now the same person's behind the counter and they're like, I'm not going through all that stuff with you again. I was nice the first time. In fact, why don't you just leave? Because we don't need you here. And see, that is the reality, for a lot of people, both male and female, because there's a point where we have to recognize that there are good people out here. And that a lot of times it's us that we're shopping at the wrong place. And because we're shopping at the wrong place, we're angry at the world instead of really recognizing like, no, it's part of me, because not only do I need to leave McDonald's alone, I need to learn how to dress and act when I go to these better places. When I go to a fine, these restaurants before weren't fine dining, but if I'm gonna go to a fine dining or wherever it is, if I'm gonna go to a different type of restaurant, I need to act a different way. I might even, like I say, need to look a different way. And see, that is really where the problem is. And I think that what she is saying overall is great, because there is a point of accountability. And so many men have talked about accountability over and over and over again when it comes to women until it's ridiculous. And the big thing I wish most women would understand about accountability is that accountability doesn't make you bad in the man's eyes. It actually lifts you up. Like if you ever see men that are going through things together, right? So for instance, like I say, I usually use football because I do watch a lot of football. And you have a receiver. I know a lot of ladies may not watch football, but you might know enough to know a quarterback and a receiver. So the quarterback throws the ball, the receiver catches the ball. If the ball hits the ground, then that play didn't work. That's basically what it is. So the receiver has to catch the ball, and then the ball has to be thrown in the vicinity of the receiver. So what happens is, you will see it if you watch football. The man will go out, the receiver will go out, the quarterback will throw the ball, and the receiver, it might have been right there. It might be right in his hands, and he drops it. And everybody in the whole stadium knows he should have caught that ball because it was right there in his hands. And he gets up, brushes himself off, literally, because he probably was tackled or tripped over himself or whatever. So he brushes himself off, and then you will see him do a motion like, where he's basically saying, my mistake. It was my fault. I am sorry. That's what that means. Or you'll see the quarterback threw the ball, but it wasn't in the vicinity of the receiver at all. So now the receiver is overly stretching out, trying to catch the ball. And then you'll see the quarterback say, my mistake, my bad. And the reason why is because they're taking accountability. Men do not hate you. They're not angry with you. They're not frustrated with you when you take accountability. Accountability is basically saying, I know I made a mistake. Let me do better in this area next time. But when you don't take accountability, you're acting arrogant. You're acting prideful. You're acting like, I didn't make a mistake. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm perfect as I am. Now, I understand that for a lot of women, there's concern about being too down on yourself. Okay, and a lot of men have to, give me a little bit of grace as I talk about this, because not all women, okay, not all, but there's a lot of women, okay, that they beat themselves up, okay, on the inside. It's a mental thing. So they get depressed and they get frustrated and they can kind of cave in on themselves emotionally and from a mental place. All right. But what I would, tell those women is that you have to understand that every success that anyone has in life literally sits on a mountain of failures. When a child learns how to walk, they don't get it right the first time. They generally fall. But what do? They get back up again. 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 It keeps going on, going on. I mean, it happens sometimes for weeks and months. But eventually, the child learns to walk. And even then, even in the fact that the child learns to walk, the problem is the child doesn't have any coordination when they walk. So the process of a child truly being able to be sturdy, where you can't like just go over and give a light shove to the child and the child just falls back, that takes years. So when you as a woman make a mistake, and if for some, men watching, for them to make a mistake, you have to understand nobody's really judging you. And if someone is judging you, you need to find another person. Okay, because the issue might be that you are with someone that will not allow you time enough to fix your problems. Because you need to feel safe enough to fix your problems. There was a woman I was dating one time, and she actually came over. And, I tell people straight up, man, by the time, the third time you come to my spot, you just going to have to go get your own dishes and stuff. I mean, there's a hospitality that's there, but I do want the woman to feel comfortable after a certain amount of time. So I'm like, yo, you can go get a dish or a glass or whatever you need, pour you some juice, pour you some water, pour you some wine. You don't always need me, and so, she got up, she went, she got, a glass. And as she was, pulling the glass out of the cabinet, I don't know what happened, but she dropped it. So I was in the other room. I heard it, shatter. And so I quickly run into the room and I'm like, what happened? Are you okay? Those are like the first two sentences out of my mouth. And what was interesting about this particular situation was the woman was afraid. I could see it in her eyes. And it wasn't that she was afraid that she dropped the glass. I think she was afraid of retaliation from me. And I felt kind of bad for her because I wasn't sure what kind of men she had dated in the past that would be angry with her and cuss her out because she dropped a glass. Because the glass is like 99 cents or less and it's not a big deal. And I buy them in sets of 8, so it's not a big deal. And for me, I just didn't care. I was like, okay, are you okay? And then I don't let people have their shoes on when they're in my house. So I know she's walking around in her socks. And so now I'm like, okay, well, don't move. Let me go get the broom. Let me sweep this up. Let me make sure you're okay. all this, and I'm more concerned about her and her well-being. But she, at that moment, like I said, I felt like I could see, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I felt like I could see it in her eyes where she was worried about retaliation. And what I'm telling you is that if you're a woman and you're in that scenario, that situation, you don't want that. You don't want that. You should be able to make 1,000 mistakes and the man not be ready to cuss you out. But if you're never willing to try to fix the mistake, to get over the mistake, like if every single time she came to my house, she broke a glass, now we got a problem. Okay? If every single time she came over, she's breaking glasses, by mistake, okay, we got a problem because I'm like, okay, well, do you know how to grip a glass? Do we need to have a class on you gripping the glass? Because I'm going to be honest with you. The first time, I'm not going to care. The second time, I'm going to have pause. Because I'm going to be like, I've known you for what? I don't know, a month, 2 months, whatever. And you broken 2 glasses. But by the time I get to the third one, I'm going to be like, okay, well, let's have a teaching session. All right. And if the woman is like, no, I don't want to do that and blah, 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 then that's going to bother me to her because then I'm like, okay, well, you don't want to learn how to properly grab a glass, or at least maybe that's not the problem. Maybe it's up too high. And so maybe I need to move this stuff around. But again, you need to be verbalizing to me that, okay, these glasses are up too high. So maybe I either need to go get a step stool for you, or I need to move the glasses to a lower shelf. But no matter what the situation is, there is a solution. So let's find the solution. Accidents will happen, but if you're constantly doing the same thing and you're not looking for a solution, that is what is going to bother a man. But you making a few mistakes doesn't bother men. We like that quality. So I think a lot of women have to stop worrying about accountability. And just be accountable for the mistakes that you made and say, okay, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. But when I say this, I also, like I said, I want to make sure I'm cautioning because there are men out there that are like drill sergeants and they want everything perfect. In fact, when I look at a lot of these TV shows, because I think they had one, Later Daters, and there was a guy on there. I mean, he was like OCD. With how he wanted his life. And I was like, yeah, of course you're alone. Because no woman wants to come into an environment where if she, drops a chip on the carpet, you're about to have a heart attack. Okay. And it's the same thing for women. There's women that do that too. So people want to be relaxed. And when they're relaxed, they're going to make mistakes. Okay. So we have to allow for a certain level of mistake and recognize that, you might have this perfect house or this perfect environment, but people are going to come in and they're going to break your stuff. I'm just being real. They're going to drop chips. They're going to, spill wine. I mean, it's going to happen eventually. You can do your best to kind of, quell it a little bit, but it's going to happen eventually. All right. So I also want to make sure that women understand that, and that, even some men that might be going through that, because I actually even dated a woman that was like that. I felt so uncomfortable in her house because I felt like I could not drop a chip, like literally. And after being in her house 2 or 3 times, I was like, I ain't never going back to your house again, because I was like, I just feel too uncomfortable. So there are people like that, like I said, on both sides. But I want to make sure I say that because, again, a lot of women might try to take accountability and they might try to do right. And then you'll end up with a person like that. And then you'll be like, oh, well, Jay, man, you didn't tell me enough. And that's kind of why I'm saying that's another reason why my videos tend to be a little long. Anyway, accountability is really interesting. I do think there's more to it. I'll talk about the non-negotiables. So remember, the non-negotiables are the things that I do think women do need to lean into. I do find a lot of women try to skip 1 or 2 or 3 all the time. And then again, they come to me and they're like, why ain't I married? Why ain't I married? Why ain't I married? And I'm like, are you following all 3? Are you taking ownership? And have you looked for those qualities in men? Do you understand the difference between a man that's in boyfriend mode and a man that's in husband mode? And you have to do all 5 of those things. It's the 3 things, like I said, just talked about with the non-negotiables. You have to take ownership, which is number 4. And then the number 5 one is that you have to see those qualities in the opposite gender form on the other side and be able to identify it easily. If you cannot do that, then you're going to struggle getting married. Anyway, again, every other Thursday, we do Thursday Talks. Please come out. It's a lot of fun. 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock in California. Until then, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.